Well, for a beginner taster, I've been there myself. Tasting with other professionals has been like the best way to do it. I was cupping with the old cupper called Per at Solberg and Hansen in my beginning, and he wasn't necessarily that good on describing coffees, but he was very sort of good at explaining me why a coffee was better than another and so on. To be able to describe like the flavors you taste, that just came to me once when I tasted a Kenyan coffee. George Howell's actually in Boston in 2003. Then I'd been cupping for like a year. And then I tasted his coffee and it's like, this coffee tastes like blueberry and blackcurrants. Like I've never tasted that before in a coffee. And that's when I realized, when people say this coffee tastes like, jasmine or whatever, that's what they're talking about. And, today it's much easier for me because I taste not only coffee but many different products. So when I taste cheese, I try to like describe what that cheese tastes like without describing or saying cheese, A Roquefort might be very fruity, might be very nutty. A goat cheese, it can taste like sweaty animals or, like sheep. Beers, we have the IPAs that can be fruity. You have the more like dark beers that can actually taste like coffee. So I think it's just, as a beginner taster, start tasting everything. Wine, beer, cheese, coffee, apples, strawberries, and just try to have more than one product at a time. So if you're tasting beer, for instance, don't open one beer, drink that, and then open the next one and drink that. Open them at the same time and compare them. It's much easier if you have something to compare with. That's also my tip for the advanced taster. Like, don't only taste coffee, start tasting other things and tasting with sommeliers, tasting with chefs, tasting with professionals will always expand your knowledge. What I'm training at the moment is trying to be more objective when I cup, meaning that in any given coffee tasting, for instance, everyone will always find the best coffee. So if you have a table with 10 coffees, there will always be a best one of that table. But it might not be a very good coffee. So to be able to analyze the coffee regardless of the other coffees on the table and giving it a fair score. So if I, for instance, put only 75-point coffee on the table and then an 80-point coffee on the table, people might score that 80-point coffee 90 points, because they're not analyzing it. They're just like, oh, this is so much better, let's put 90 points. So analyzing, using the forms properly, like how is the mouthfeel, is it clean, how is the acidity, is it pleasant, and so on. And I think Morten, that works for Nordic Approach, or runs Nordic Approach, he's very good at being, isolated. He can isolate the coffee and evaluate it regardless of the other ones on the table. Whereas I feel that I'm very often affected by the other cups on the table. Oh, there's many aspects, but first of all, look at the green coffee. The physical green coffee, you can smell it. If it smells bad, then it's probably, if it smells like earth or something, it's probably dried on the soil. Or you can look at the beans, if they're discolored, if they're white, if they're black, if they're brown, should be even, nice color. Of course, after you roast it, it's difficult to look at the beans. You can still see if there's been broca or broken beans or stuff like that. Quakers, the ones that are very light after roast, that smells like peanuts. But when you taste the coffee, it's normally, it takes a little training. I feel that a lot of times, especially over fermented coffees, can be very desirable for people in the beginning because they're very fruity. For me, most of natural coffees taste like over fermented washed coffees. But a lot of people like that. There's nothing wrong with liking it. It's just, for me, an uninteresting flavor because I've tasted it many times the flavor is the same regardless if the coffee is from Brazil or Sumatra or Kenya. So actually I took a class at the SEAA many years ago called Tasting Defects. And that was really good because then you taste phenolic cup, you taste over-fermented cups, you taste woody cups, and then it's very easy to spot afterwards because you know that flavor, like, oh, it's very strong. It can also be weak, but you just remember it very effectively. So, but if you're not experienced in this, then it's difficult, I guess. A lot of times, especially woody coffees, old coffees, are served because people don't notice it, and especially if you, for instance, now at this period, it's April, so there's not a lot of fresh coffee around. So most of the coffees are slightly woody, so you don't really notice it. But if you put a fresh crop coffee on, then you taste like, oh, this is so woody. And we still have this experience in our cupping lab. Yeah. So I would say go to a defect tasting. That's the best thing you can do. And if you can't go to a defect tasting, then contact exporter or something and just ask them to send you some defective coffee, like over-fermented, phenolic, and so on. And that's the easiest way to learn how to spot this. I still haven't decided if I'm going to spend the rest of my life working in coffee, but now it looks like I'm going to. But no, I've never took that decision actually. I just love to work in coffee, so that's what I do. If I stop loving it, then I will stop working in coffee. And I've also changed my job over the time, so I started as a barista, then I sort of managed the store and was a barista, and then I competed a lot, and then I ran the Stockless chain with a friend of mine. Then I was sort of focusing on product development and quality control and training. Then I was freelancing before I opened this store, when I started roasting more. So it's been constantly changing. And that's probably why I'm still in coffee. So it's not like a one thing. It's just like I'm learning a lot every day, and it changes a lot, and it still keeps it interesting. Well, the cons is if you don't have good quality coffee, it doesn't taste good, and you can't cover it up. You can cover it up with over roasting it or something, but the reason why I stopped blending, I don't have anything against blends. I just don't find it interesting intellectually. Like, I would like to taste what variety I'm tasting, where the coffee is from, how it's processed. That's what I want to taste, and that's why I stopped blending, because I spent a lot of time at farm level developing new varieties with growers. Not developing the varieties, but planting new varieties, and developing the quality at farm level on the process and so on. And I want to be able to taste that. So if you then blend it with something else, you won't be able to taste it. So that's why we stopped doing it. And I also think if you have a great quality coffee, it is complex, it is sweet, it is balanced if you brew it well and roast it well. So there's no need for blending it. It sort of feels for me like if I buy a really great bottle of wine from France or from a specific vineyard, and then I want to make this more complex, so I take some Australian wine or Italian wine and mix it in. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. However, I was just in Honduras, and one of the farmers had mixed two varieties together, and we roasted it, and it tasted amazing. So blending doesn't have to occur in the roastery. It can also occur at farm level. And many times this happens, like we buy Caturra and Variedad Colombia from Tamana because of practical reasons, and it tastes great. They can also taste great separate. So yeah, nothing against blending. I just don't prefer to drink that because I don't find it that interesting. Yeah, No, it's difficult to manage everything on a good level, I think. So of course I'm not alone in this. I have a fantastic team that works in the store with very responsible people, a great bar manager, great wholesale managers, great roasters, responsible people. So the store itself, we have very good systems, you know, so everyone knows what to do every day. If something happens, you know, if I'm in Colombia, what am I going to do? So they have to fix it themselves. So I think if you empower your employees to take responsibility, then you know, the store is more or less self-running. Yes, developing, you know, new drinks and stuff like that, I have to sort of be the driving force behind that, I feel. But you don't have to do that every day. So, you know, for me, making great coffee is a lot to do with routine. It's about being consistent, have good systems, making sure that everyone knows what to do and follow the routines. And then we can focus on customer service and experience, and, you know. So without my team here, I couldn't, you know, travel at all. But I've even from the beginning when I started in Stocklets, I realized that, you know, you have to have very good systems that people follow. No exceptions, they have to follow it in order to not let the store run you, but you are actually running the store. Like you're trying to work preventive instead of fixing problems all the time. So then you can travel, and, you know, also in Colombia there's not that much to do now. The trees are, you know, this big. They're not having any fruit or anything. The only thing I need to do is to make compost, which takes 2 to 3 weeks. So I do that 3 times a year, and applying the compost while I'm there. So we hire some staff to do that, and then apart from that, it's just, you know, cutting some weeds, and if we have to plant more trees, they will do that while I'm not there, and you just hire people to do that. But of course, the management and planning of it that's what I do. So yeah, I think, you know, making yourself not needed in the store or at the farm is probably the ideal. So you train people to do your job, and so you can manage it. It's as simple as dating, you know. You have to find the right person that you'll kind of enjoy the company of, and yeah, I mean, just be an honest, open-minded, decent person, and then if you find people that you like and they are the same, then you are developing a relationship. It's not something like I'm going to Colombia to develop relationships. Like, you meet people, maybe you work with one farmer a couple of years, and then it turns out, you know, you don't have that kind of connection personally, or he doesn't believe in the same ideas that you do, so you finish the relationship and you start with a new one. Or so yeah, it's a little bit like dating, you know. It needs just to be the right click, and also like having great staff. I've had a lot of great staff that, you know, people develop, and then after 5 years they might have, you know, different desires, different ideas. So you decide to separate, or they decide to quit, but it doesn't mean that you're not friends or anything. It's just like, yeah, the life changes. So it's an ongoing thing, I think. But for me, I'm been very lucky to find great producers to work with that we've been working with for a long time. And yeah, I think it's a matter of just, you know, communicating more often than once a year, and exchanging ideas and listening to what they have to say. But they also need to be willing to listen to what you have to say, and it's like a two-way thing. Yeah, probably. Like, when I'm in Italy, I actually enjoy drinking espresso with sugar, you know. Although it's not great quality, it's kind of got that Italian taste that, you know, I kind of enjoy. It's not like I'm searching for the best espresso when I'm there or something. It's just like, yeah, it's part of the culture. I enjoy just being in an Italian espresso bar, watching the culture and drinking the espresso, and without having to analyze it so much. It's probably my guilty pleasure in coffee, but no, in other things, I used to eat a lot of candy, but I don't do that anymore. No, sugar isn't very good for you, like in excess at least, so I'm trying to lay that off after many years. And I used to watch television all the time, so I'm a slave of television, but now, you know, I'm tired of that as well, so yeah.
Thanks for watching. For more videos, subscribe our YouTube channel and visit our website